Hi everyone, I'm Gauhar and this is my husband Omar. And I've been here before, but I've ever so slightly roped him into this because it's not really even been 48 hours since he has landed. We both live together in Oxfordshire with our 2 children, and we love to travel. So we don't, we're not particularly in the money or anything. We both have just regular, decent jobs and a modest living, but Omar's a doctor and I'm a teacher. But whatever money we do have to spare, we will go and travel with that, and we'll go around the world. And that is, we're very lucky to live where we do, I guess, because we can get £20 tickets to Germany if we want to. So that's a nice thing. But traveling means a whole lot to us, and we would much rather do that than buy particularly nice things like handbags, or don't send our kids to private schools or anything like that. So I guess we're utterly selfish parents, but there we are. And we take our kids everywhere, don't we?
We do. Yeah, so we like taking our children everywhere. We obviously traveled before we got married, before they had kids, but not before we got married, but before we had kids. But now we take them everywhere because we feel it's really important to give them the same experiences. We don't go to resorts. We don't do very child-friendly holidays. We do occasionally, but not often. We try and do things which actually we enjoy because we want to instill the same love of travel and new places to them as well. So we went to Istanbul last October. We actually went to Istanbul for our honeymoon as well. So there's a link to the first story, but that was obviously some time ago. We've been married 14 years. And we really wanted...
Unlike you, we mainly prayed on our honeymoon 5 times a day, which is not something I'm generally known to do, but every time we heard the azan, we were out, we were praying, and that was a good trip, I think, more or less. Yeah.
You carry on.
Oh, I carry on. So of all the places that we have been to, and I know that a lot of people here love traveling, so we're not saying this to show off because that is a very unclassy thing to do, but we've been to lots of nice places. I mean, my highlights, like I love Verona because I like the Romeo and Juliet connection. Mind you, there isn't really much of a connection there, no, but it's fake, yeah. But anyway, I liked it. Been to Salzburg, done the Sound of Music tour. One of my really good friends is Mauritian, so we've been to Mauritius. We've been to Las Vegas, we hated it. So we liked it. Can you think of any places that you've really loved going to that you want to mention? You gone blank? Anyway, so but the place that I have made a link with, like no other place in the world, is Istanbul. So there is something about that place that really appeals to me. It is, I guess, the soulfulness of that place. I guess it's the fact that it's this beautiful, rich mix of the East and the West, and that's very palpable. You can see it. It's the people, for a variety of reasons, not all good. It's the food, and I also enjoy reading Turkish literature. So particularly Orhan Pamuk, I've read. And Istanbul, obviously his city, and he's written his memoir, Istanbul. And in that book, I'm not just going to talk about books, by the way, it's just setting the context for our story a little bit. But in the book, Istanbul, Orhan Pamuk talks about this concept of huzn. So just give me a nod if you've heard of huzn, H-U-Z-N, this idea of huzn. And huzn is like almost like a pleasurable melancholia. So you feel this sense of sadness and it overwhelms you. And I don't know if you've been to Istanbul or any other city which has left that kind of impact on you. And Pamuk kind of looks at cities and places as people. So he personifies people. So he's saying, look, here is this beautiful, majestic city, this place. And look at its resilience. Look at how much it's suffered. And here it stands there looking just outstandingly beautiful in all its splendor. But think about how much it's been through. So huzn is the idea of making that slightly melancholic but slightly pleasurable connection with the place. And Istanbul is perhaps the only place, barring Karachi, where I have made that connection. So I've been back lots of times since. And last October we decided, you know what, let's take our kids there. So I went there first, and I was there for a few days because Omar, it's harder for him to get leave, but I'm a teacher, we're always off, right? So yeah, you were at a conference somewhere, or so he says. Anyway, so Fair enough. Okay, we have decided we are not going to have a spat here, even though Fiza's husband Sajjad suggested that that's the best thing we can do here, because we'll get all sorts of YouTube hits and likes and stuff. But we're gonna be dignified today. Anyway, so we were in Istanbul, and I showed my kids all of Istanbul, and then it was slightly tumultuous as well. My daughter Alina had an allergic reaction in the middle of Istiklal Avenue, so all sorts of things. Language is a barrier. And then Omar arrives, and he suggested that let's explore Turkey beyond Istanbul. So it was one of his brilliant ideas. He'll tell you a little bit more.
So I really wanted to go to Bursa, which is the old Ottoman capital. I don't know whether any of you have been to it, but so lucky you, because so we wanted to go, and I read up about it. I read that it was the old Ottoman capital. I read that it was a very green city. I read that it's got a lot of history, lots of UNESCO World Heritage sites, and it's only 2 hours from Istanbul, maybe less than 2 hours. So we asked at our hotel. We never stayed anywhere too posh. It was a very average hotel, but we said that we asked them, we want to go to Bursa. What would you recommend? So he said, oh, there's a Bursa tour that goes daily, and we can book you on it. And we said, okay, fine. It wasn't very cheap, but we thought, and it's a whole day tour, so let's do it. I really want to see this place. I tried to sort of see, could I do it myself? But that would involve getting on a ferry, getting on a bus, getting on a taxi. And with two small children, our children were 9 and 6 at the time. So we thought, what, let's just be, we don't usually do this, we usually like to do things by ourselves, but let's just go for it. Let's go on this tour, and let's see what it's like. So anyway, I'll hand over to Gauhar to start the story. And we're
going to kind of, just I guess table tennis this a little bit. So we're all ready for Bursa, and in our typical style, we read all about it, and our children, who, whether they like it or not, we tell them all about this place in advance. Okay, so it's all looking like a very academic experience so far. They've seen the pictures, we're going to see this, the old bazaar, the UNESCO sites, everything. We're ready. So excited, we wake up very early, and we get picked up from our hotel at 8:30 a.m. And we realize that we're picking lots of people on the way, as these coaches tend to do. And everyone who's hopping in are young Arab couples who are very amorous. They're very visibly amorous with each other. And so one come in, and then the second, the third, the fourth, the bus is now filled with clearly honeymooning Arab couples. And this has got very little to do with race. I mean, I keep saying Arab, but we realize that not only are they young and amorous, we are the only ones who've got kids there, but all the information that the tour guide is disseminating is going to be in Arabic. So obviously, our Quranic knowledge is strong, but that wasn't the kind of information that we were getting. So we're sitting there thinking, so he will speak in Arabic for about 4 minutes, and then he'll say something like, and those are mountains. So we were getting like this half-baked, very condensed translation, and around us are cuddling couples. So we said, okay, this is interesting, but at least we get to see Bursa, this old Ottoman gem, right? And so about 10:30, we are off. We're off to Bursa. And then
they say, okay, well, we're going to have a little detour. Before we get to the city, we're going to stop at this beautiful scenic lake.
We live in England, we don't need to see
we don't need to see scenic lake, but whether you like it or not, you're going to see a scenic lake. So we get there, and then we see this line of quad bikes. Okay, interesting. And they say, we're going to go there on quad bikes. Okay, it's just rained, it's really cold, and we didn't realize it was going to be cold there, so we're wearing shorts, you're wearing your flip-flops, and it suddenly started to rain, and they're going to make us sit in quad bikes in this slippery rain, and we have 2 small children, so we said, we don't want to go on those quad bikes. Okay, that's fine, instead of going on the quad bikes, you can go on the Land Rover. 250 liras, please. Okay, but we've already paid for it? No, you have to get it. Okay, fine. So we go to the lake. The lake is just, it looks a little bit like a sewer, to be absolutely honest. It didn't smell like a sewer, but it looked like one. And we took a few photos, and then this man was taking photos as well, and he said, okay, I'll take a photo of you, making us pose. The kids had a reasonably good time posing. We got back, and then the rain is coming down. People are slipping on the quad bikes. I'm just thinking there's about to be a lot of casualties happening, but thankfully no casualties. And then they say to us, oh, you can buy the photos that we took of you. So here's 20 liras for each photo. So actually, we're all right, thank you. We've taken them with our own phone.
And we're wondering where in the ether our kids will be, because they made the kids do some really dodgy poses, didn't they? We're not a family who, I've got some friends here who know that I like photos, so I can't lie, but We don't do those sorts of dodgy.
But the honeymoon couples were very happy to have the poses.
They were delighted.
But we weren't really going to be doing those same poses with two small children. But anyway.
So anyway, this came to an end, and somehow we got out of the Land Rover and we said, you know what, let's keep a good spirit on us because we're going to the Ottoman capital, it's going to be all right. And so they said, okay, before we go to Bursa, we'll just stop at a Turkish delight factory. Now, I like sweet things. My friend Sobia and I here, we once ate an entire chocolate cake together, didn't we? Do you remember a few years ago? I love sweet things. So I thought, okay, Turkish delight, baklava factory, let's go to this place. Amazing. We get off, it's not a factory, it's a shop, and it was a very slick procedure, wasn't it? They took us in, they were absolutely expecting us, it was very commercial, and we ended up spending over £100, didn't we? Because at this point, we still had the will to live. So we're like, okay, fine, you know, we'll buy this, it looks really good, we're trying it. Obviously, Alina has a nut allergy, so to be really careful about what she eats and doesn't eat. Baklava factory is not a great place for a nut allergy sufferer. Anyway, the Arabs were buying a lot, like literally, you know, suitcases full of baklava, Turkish delight. We're there for about 45 minutes. We're thinking, let's really get on with this now, buy all this nice stuff. And anyway, eventually we took all of this stuff, and it's about mid-afternoon, and we go back into the coach. So we're thinking, yay, Bursa now.
So then they say, okay, on the way to Bursa, we are going to stop at a very beautiful mountain. Okay, that sounds fine. But before we get to the mountain, we're going to stop at a 1,000-year-old tree. We actually come from England, we don't need to see any more trees, but okay, fine, show us this tree. The tree was okay, and we took a few photos. On the way back, there was a man with parrots. Kids, he said, okay, your kids, they really need to have their photos taken with these parrots. And 20 liras later, we now have some photos of the kids with parrots. Okay, so then we think, okay, now we're actually getting quite hungry as well. So they promised us a meal at a restaurant. They promised us Iskandar kebab, which is one of the most famous things from Bursa. So here we are thinking, okay, we must be getting close to Bursa now, because, you know, it's lunchtime. In fact, it's a bit past lunchtime. We then go to, was it another shop, or was it?
It was a very sorry-looking restaurant.
Oh yes, it was a very sorry-looking restaurant on the way up towards the mountain. Disgusting toilets, by the way. So we got there, and they gave us this meal, and we were given a tiny portion of food, and they said, this is your food. Okay, we ate it, it was above anything. And then they said, okay, now we're going to the mountain, which actually, as we started going up towards the mountain, it started to snow. So just bear in mind, I'm in shorts, my Gauhar is in flip-flops, the kids are in t-shirts, and it's snowing. The Arabs are getting very excited about the snow, but we said, we've actually come to get away from that, but you are now putting us through some snow. And it started coming down very, very heavily. Yeah. We finally got to the mountain. Could we see any of the mountain? No, because it had snowed, and there was mist everywhere. And then they said, okay, now we're going to go up to the top of the mountain.
So I am a very anxious person. I've never been on a roller coaster. I've taken my kids to Disney, etc., and I'll sit in the teacups, and that is pretty much the maximum of what I can. My sense of adventure is very limited. But I was sort of standing here, and these cable cars are coming one by one. So it's that idea of shocking you into it. And I was telling Omar, I was like, you know, I can't do this. I don't want to go, because look at it down there. It's a snowy mountains. They're going to take us across that. But if anyone's been on a cable car, you don't really have time to think. You're shoved on it. You either get on it or it knocks you down. And you know, the choice is not really a choice. And so I jump onto this cable car. It shuts down in front of us. My son's with me, I'm screaming, he's 6 years old, he's consoling me, screaming away thinking, I hate you, Omar. He's like, this is not even, you know, nothing to do with me, like, you know. But obviously, as in your story over there, he wanted to go to Bursa, so, you know, he is accountable for this nonsense. So anyway, I'm just thinking, I can't, this is so surreal. I'm going to bloody Bursa. Why are we on a snow cable car? Like, what is going on right now? It's like an otherworldly experience. Anyway, we're taking pictures and stuff. We get off, and it's the same concept. They take it off, and you jump off, or you die.
And then 20 lira pictures.
And they're taking pictures. And by this time, I'm, you know, saying things that I can't repeat in public. And anyway, we go there, and expensively, they give us some tea. We are literally, you know, freezing our buttocks off. You know, we are freezing to a point where we're thinking, are we going to get pneumonia, or will we? None of this is exaggerated. We were fearing for, you know, you are in the snowy mountains, and it is that kind of temperature. But ever so slightly frustratingly, our kids seem to be enjoying this experience a little bit. You know what? The Bursa maybe didn't have as much for them, but they are enjoying it, but also really freezing, wet from head to toe. And then we come back, and this finishes, and we're loaded back onto the bus, and they're like, okay, let's head to Bursa. It's about 5 o'clock in the evening now. We've been up since 6 a.m., ready for Bursa. And at this point, the tour guide, who we had actually begun to loathe by this point, I was like, I actually hate you. You are toxic. I hate you. And then he said that just before we go to Bursa, this story never gets better, by the way, so if you're hoping for a happy ending, I'm going to disappoint you. So he said, just before we go to Bursa, there's actually a lovely place that sells honey. I'm like, the hell with the honey, you know? I don't want the honey.
I bought some.
He bought the honey because what do you do? What else do you do? And so we go there and they say, is it alright? Oh, no, sorry. It's fine. So not just the honey, but they also sell soap that's made with donkey's milk. I was like, oh, when you put it that way, I'm in. Anyway, so we go, I know you made a face there, but actually the soap is good. I bought it. Donkey's milk, yes. Anyway, so we're buying this thing, and by this time they're like, oh, it's also Maghrib time, so why don't we all pray? So I said, yeah, we can pray, because certainly we're praying to be able to get to Bursa at some point today, but we'll pray. And we bought this honey, and the kids, because they were getting frustrated, they began to overdose on the honey a little bit, because you could try it, double dipping the stick and, having all this honey. So they're frustrated, they're sticky.
On a sugar high as well.
On a sugar high, and we get back onto the coach.
And finally we start our descent towards Bursa. So
It's about 8 o'clock.
it's close to, no, it's about 7:30, something like that. It's completely pitch black, no idea where we're driving. We arrive in Bursa, and I don't think there are any prizes for guessing where we go next. Yes, another shop. So this is apparently a Turkish hammam, a very beautiful old Turkish hammam that has been converted into a shop. The shop owners are not interested in telling us about the hammam. They're interested in selling us the made in China things that are present in the shop. Half the people on the bus actually by this stage just didn't get off, because they thought, we don't want to go to yet another shop. We walked in thinking, oh, maybe they might tell us something about the hammam. And then they said, actually, and then the final stop on this tour is the Green Mosque, which is apparently a very beautiful historic mosque dating from hundreds of years old. So I go into the mosque. It's pitch dark, so we can't see anything from the outside. We go in, it's absolutely beautiful. And I said to Gauhar, let's go inside. And they said, no, she can't come in, it's Isha time, they're praying. Okay, so I said my Isha prayers, and then I left. And then he said, that's it, that's our tour. So then anyway.
I mean, the one place they showed us was the mosque, and I couldn't go inside. So I went outside, there was someone selling crisps outside, I bought the crisps. I came back, by this time I'd given up hope for any of this stuff, and we came back and we sat down, we just couldn't believe it. And we thought, is there some kind of nighttime activity? Are they going to take us somewhere? No, they were taking us back to Istanbul on the ferry boat. So that was the tour. And on the way back, Omar and I, in these circumstances, like the Arabs couldn't understand us, the kids had lost interest, we started giving each other an attitude, because we were so frustrated we didn't know what to do, so we were not really talking to each other. And Omar went and sat in those corner seats there, and I was there with one child, and I was just thinking, this has been so shite, Anyway, and I thought, okay, well, let me at least tell the tour guide, that your tour was disappointing. But Omar is a very mild-mannered man, and he is a doctor, he's an oncologist. So he's got a very gentle bedside manner, but he kind of leaves that at work quite often. So he's also mild-mannered at home, don't get me wrong, but when he loses it, he loses it. So hopefully none of you will ever see that side, but when his sense of justice is really strong, and his sense of justice had been piqued that night, let's just say. And so I said to him, Omar, I'm going to speak to the tour guide. I'm going to call him here. I'm going to speak to him. This is on the bus. But please don't say anything, okay? We're going to make this pact. You be silent. Let me do the talking, because when you start, we know what happens. And he said, yes, fine, go ahead. You do the talking. So I called him here, and I have an inability to scream or get angry. I am much more kind of passive-aggressive. So he came and I said, look, I have to say, I'm disappointed with this tour, Where's Bursa? Like, we paid you, I don't know, nearly £300 for this tour. We've committed our whole day out of a 5-day-long break. You haven't shown us Bursa. I can't believe it. But I was quite gentle about it. I said, I'm disappointed. And at this point, he can't help himself, so he interjects. So he moves forward and he says, I'm afraid my wife's being too nice to you. Oh my goodness. And Omar basically let rip. He did not mince his words. And you know, I think you raised your voice. Were you screaming?
I was.
He was screaming. But the thing is, the other Arabs, I mean, they got it. They got what we were doing. So he had support in the audience. And so they were all also like, yes, yes. They couldn't speak a word of English, but you could tell that they were on our side. But it was embarrassing, and I felt like he'd let me down because he'd promised to shut up while I do the talking. And so then, for the rest of the journey, we didn't talk. And Omar said, well, of course you're going to defend the tour guide over me. That's what you do. You know what? I mean, this is...
Not my finest hour.
It wasn't his finest hour, but one good thing he did was he channeled his energies to writing a TripAdvisor review on the coach. So he was in the moment, and he's written a review, and if anyone's interested, it's a fine piece of literature. You know what? I'm actually tempted to use it to teach my students how to craft a complaint. And so we did that, and everyone got dropped off, and then... no, half the people got dropped off.
No, but they didn't. The first thing that happened is, as we were heading towards the city, the first thing that happened, that the tour guide said to us, okay, I'm off. And he's legged it. He just legged it.
He said, this is my home.
This is my home, I'm going.
He knew what was going to happen.
Because he knew no one was going to tip him. Because none of us had a good time. And actually, we were just going to give him hell. So he just ran for it. And that was it. And then we got back home at midnight, after having not seen Bursa, not seen any of these historic sites, seen the Green Mosque briefly in the dark, and wasted. Well, actually, then I complained to the hotel person. I didn't lose it then, did I? No, actually, no, you complained. Because you actually banned me from complaining to him. I got banned, and then you complained.
I complained, he refunded a little bit of money, but the time had gone, and you know how every story has a little glimmer or silver lining, and you think, you know, there was something, nothing. This story had nothing, except maybe the pleasure of your company tonight, and that maybe we generated a few laughs and we could tell the story, but our kids still make fun of us. Wasn't Bursa nice? Bursa was lovely. And so when we called our the title of our talk Bursa Dreams, the idea obviously being that it's still very much a dream. Who the hell knows what it's like? And we, you know, we came back and we tried really hard. Even as we were driving over here, Omar was saying, what's the moral of our, you know, what did we learn from there? It's just like, you know, nothing. We just got completely...
No, we learned one thing. We learned one thing. If you do it yourself. Do not rely on a rubbish tour company who's going to take your money, take you on a shopping tour, scam you and con you. Do it yourself. Even if you end up getting lost, even if you end up... At least it's your own fault then. You know what I mean? This is someone else who did this to us. It's not nice. But unfortunately, Turkey is full of scammers. So just as a word of warning, do it yourself. Even if it's a difficult time, even if you miss a ferry or miss a plane, at least you've done it yourself and you've got that satisfaction. So I think that is the moral of our story.
Other than that, nothing. Thank you.